He simply opened the door of the workshop and changed someone else's fate. She came to the city to disappear, but found what she wasn't looking for. The old workshop grew into a place where people were taught not to be afraid of making mistakes. But one mistake threatened to ruin everything, until someone said, "I'll stay anyway. Don't forget to subscribe and like so you don't miss new stories." The wind that evening was sharp and empty, like the streets of Fairhollow, a town that seemed to have forgotten why it was ever built. The streets were empty, the storefronts were long since faded, even the signs on the shops were drooping, as if tired of holding up. At the very end of Shelby Street, where the asphalt had long since cracked, stood an old auto body shop with a peeling sign that read, "Matt's Auto and Tire." The paint on the windows was faded, the door creaked with every gust of wind, but inside it still smelled of grease and dust and patience. Matt Harrison stood at his workbench, wearing an oil-stained shirt and faded jeans, staring at a gearbox that should have been taken apart in an hour but was not working today. His fingers knew metal better than his own skin, but today they were slow, like his thoughts, like everything in this city. He wiped his hands on a rag, sat down on a stool, and reached for his mug. The coffee had gone cold, not for the first time. "Nothing again," he muttered, looking at the screen of the old phone. No calls, no orders, just an ad for cheap spare parts and a reminder, payment is 17 days overdue. There was a rumble outside, not loud, but enough to make Matt stand up. Through the window, he saw an old, cherry-colored Impala slowly approaching the gate. It was barely holding up. The headlights were dim, the muffler was cracking, the front brakes were squealing like they were crying. It stopped unevenly, askew, and a woman got out from behind the wheel. Young, about 35, with ash-blonde hair pulled back into a careless bun, and a face as tired as if she hadn't slept in a week. Her jacket was old but neat. Her boots were dusty. She approached the door but stopped uncertainly. Matt came out on his own. "Good evening," he said, raising his chin slightly. "What's up?" The woman swallowed. "The car, the brakes, they barely hold. She hesitated. "I'm not from the city. I was just passing through. And I saw the light." "You've hit the very last point of civilization on this road," Matt chuckled. "You're lucky you even noticed." "I'm not sure you can call it luck," she said quietly. I don't have any money. Not for repairs, not for a tow truck. But it's dangerous to go any further. I understand if you—" "Stop," he interrupted. "You said brakes. That means they need to be fixed." "But I can't." "Look," he waved his hand. "I'm not a bank. I'm a mechanic. So, if the car breaks down, I clean it, take it apart, replace it. Then you leave. It's simple." She looked at him, for a long time, as if she didn't believe him. "Thank you," was all she said. "Really, my name is Olivia." "Matt," he nodded. "Leave the keys in the lock. I'll drive it in myself." The car pulled into the garage with a chain creaking. Matt lifted it up on the lift and, whistling through his teeth, looked under the bottom. "Well, my dear," he muttered, addressing the machine rather than its owner. "You were put together like a patchwork quilt, but never mind. You'll live yet." Olivia stood in the corner, hugging herself. "Can I help you?" "Only if you can hold a lantern and not talk while I'm in the dust." "Then I guess I can." They worked in silence. He took apart the support, explained the gist of it without looking. She shone the light, didn't interfere. Sometimes she asked questions, correct ones, not stupid ones. She had the look of a person who knows how to listen. "It's ready," he said, straightening up. "You'll be driving around tomorrow morning like new." "Tomorrow? I won't let you go out at night on an old highway with brakes. I have a sofa in the office. It's old, but better than sleeping in a car. Just don't argue. I don't rent out rooms. I give shelter when I can." She sat down, took off her jacket, quietly. "You didn't ask why I'm here, alone, in the dark." Because if someone wants to tell, they will tell themselves. And if not, that's their business. They were silent for a long time. I had money, a job, a name, but one day it all disappeared. Not because I did something bad, but because I just didn't please. It happens, Matt said. There's a lot of them around here. And you too? And me. I am one of those who remained when everyone left. She nodded, as if she understood. That night she slept on the sofa. He closed the gate, turned off the light, and sat with a mug by the window. The wind was still howling, but inside it was surprisingly quiet. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know where she was going. But there was something in the workshop that night that had long since disappeared. The feeling that you had done everything right, even if no one would see it. The morning in Fair Hollow was quiet, but filled with some strange tension, as if the city knew something and was silent for now. A thin haze of smoke hung over the roofs of the houses. Puddles glistened in scattered spots on the wet asphalt, and rare cars drove along the street with lazy, squealing tires. Inside the workshop there was a smell of grease, coffee, and something that resembled warmth, not from the temperature, but from the feeling of being with others. Matt was already standing at the lift, adjusting the hood on the engine. Olivia was still asleep in the office, curled up under a thin blanket. He did not wake her. Let the person rest, if she can. While he worked, his thoughts kept bothering him. Everything about her was strange, and yet somehow familiar. Not like someone you knew, but like someone you'd been waiting for. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't beg. She didn't make excuses. And yet there was something unsettling in her tone, something not from here. By 8 in the morning, Olivia came out, already wearing a jacket, with her hair pulled back and a slight shadow of gratitude in her eyes. "I didn't know how to thank you," she said, leaning against the door frame, "but I still wanted to. Thank you. Really. You've already repaid me by simply not disappearing before dawn," Matt chuckled. "Want some coffee?" If it is bitter and real, then yes. They were sitting on the hood of her car, a couple of mugs, blinding light, dusty air. "I have to go," Olivia said. "I can't stay in one place for long. It's not running away, by the way. It's just easier." "You really don't need to explain." "No," she smiled, "but I'll tell you anyway. Not because I want you to feel sorry, but because you're the first one who didn't ask." She took a crumpled bill out of her pocket. "I know it's not enough, but take it, please. Take it. I'm not in that line of work. A mechanic is not a taxi driver. I just do what I can. So, are you always like this? What kind of this is this? Someone who just helps, without conditions." Matt shrugged. "I don't know. There was just a moment, and I did it. Maybe on another day I would have refused. But yesterday, no." They were silent again. The wind rustled across the roof. "If I can ever help you," she said quietly, "you will find me. Or I will find you." "I don't think we'll ever meet again," he said calmly. "The world is strange, and it always returns." She left promptly at 9. She waved out the window and disappeared around the corner, leaving behind only a dusty line on the pavement and a strange feeling of incompleteness. Matt returned to work. The day dragged on as usual. 1 client, 2 calls, 1 canceled order. Everything was as usual. See you in the evening. Around 6 in the evening, a new car drove into the yard. Clean, black, glossy. A woman in a light coat and high boots got out. Glasses on her face, a tablet in her hands. She moved precisely, slowly, like people accustomed to being in control. "Mr. Harrison?" she asked, coming closer. "Who's asking?" "My name is Alexis Monroe. I represent the B&R Civic Legacy Foundation. We have an unusual conversation for you." Matt wiped his hands on a rag and frowned. "I don't buy anything, and I don't join anything." "It's not about buying. You helped a woman a couple of days ago. Her name is Olivia Blair." Matt froze. And she is a co-owner of a foundation that is developing a pilot program to support local initiatives and humanitarian projects. And she chose you. Without discussion. She simply said, "Here is a person who does good in silence. He needs help." "I don't understand." "You helped, without knowing who she was. And you didn't even ask. There are almost no people like her left now." Matt frowned. "Look, I didn't expect anything. I don't play at good deeds. I just fix the brakes. That's exactly what she values." Alexis handed him a folder. Inside was a certificate for new equipment, a voucher for a licensed upgrade to the premises, a training contract for 2 interns from the foundation, and a letter. He unfolded it. He recognized the handwriting. "Thank you for just doing it. Not because you could, but because you couldn't help it. Sometimes that's all it takes to change the course of something bigger. Olivia." Matt sat down, silently. He looked at the paper for a long time. Then he put it down and said, "What do you want from me?" "Just one thing. Keep doing what you're already doing. Only now, not alone." In the evening, he was alone in the workshop. He turned on the light. He looked at the old tools, at the sealed windows, at the stains on the floor. All of this was his. But now it was the beginning, not the end. He walked over to the workbench, turned on the old radio, and for the first time in a long time, didn't turn it off after 5 minutes. Because in this city, finally, someone believed that even rusty things could become something new. The first signs of change didn't come with official letters or vouchers from the foundation. They came with children. With the way 3 teenagers stood at the gate of Matt's Auto and Tire and just stared, as if they couldn't believe the sign that said, "Training and internship for Youth Free," was for real. One of them, a tall, red-haired guy with a backpack, was the first to crack. "Can you really show me how it all works?" Matt, standing by the hood of the old Ford, straightened up and wiped his hands on a rag. "I can. But only if you're not afraid of getting dirty." "I'm Ruby," said the girl next to him, a thin girl with eyes that looked through. "I'm from the orphanage on Highland Road. They said there was something to learn here." "You can," Matt nodded. "But I warn you, this is not a club. They don't pat you on the head here. They make you do it. Do you understand?" "Yeah," they answered in chorus. And so it began. Instead of 1 pair of hands, there were now 5 in the workshop. Teenagers came in with torn jackets, headphones on, mistrustful. And they left with dirty hands and a gleam in their eyes that Matt hadn't seen in anyone since his father. He wasn't building a school. He was just doing what he knew how. And speaking as best he could. If the screw doesn't go, don't break it, let it go. Technology is like a person. Sometimes you just need to give it time. The foundation did not interfere. The equipment arrived on time. Alexis Monroe called once a week. "Mr. Harrison, are you okay?" "So far, no one has run away and nothing has burned down. That means I'm coping." "What if more hands are needed?" "I don't need hands. I need people who want to learn. Everything else will follow." She laughed, briefly, but sincerely. "We will think about how to expand the program, but only if you really want it." "I'm not sure I want more. I just want what I have to not fall apart." Then Tommy came. 62, a veteran with a limp, his hands still bearing the marks of old burns. He walked in silently, sat on a bench against the wall, and watched. For hours. On the 3rd day, Matt came over. "Do you always sit, or did you come to participate?" "I just watch. It's like before. The noise, the smell of oil, the iron. I missed it so much." "Then get up. We have an engine that won't start without you." Tommy grinned as if he was young again. "Only if you give me gloves." Matt put up a wooden sign in the backyard. Simple, no pretense. 2nd gear study. Work, live. The kids started bringing others. Ruby brought a neighbor boy, quiet and scared. Tommy introduced Matt to a couple of other veterans. One of them, George, brought a set of old auto-electrical textbooks. "This is all I have left. If you want it, take it. Teach them something I can't do anymore." Fair Hollow, despite his resistance, began to change. People began to stop by the workshop. Some to look, some to ask, some to offer help. The local library donated shelves. A businessman from a neighboring town sent a box of new overalls, and all of this because of one choice. Because of one night when Matt simply didn't ask why. One evening, as the sun was setting behind the roof and the workshop was immersed in soft semi-darkness, Olivia reappeared. She was wearing a simple coat and carrying a box of tools. "I hope you don't mind if I try myself in this mud too," she said, smiling. Matt nodded. "Dirt, like kindness, does not suit everyone. But I think it will suit you." I looked at the reports. "The fund is ready to invest in expansion. Until we lose our soul," he replied. "This is not a school. This is a workshop. People come here to feel that they can do it themselves." They sat on the porch, watching the teenagers laughing behind the garage. "You know," Olivia said quietly, "I thought I was looking for heroes, but I found real ones. Because the real ones don't dream of being heroes. They just stay when others leave." And that evening, amid the smell of metal, wet grass, and the light from the workshop windows, there was something more than success in the air. There was what people call hope. Not loud, but solid. Like an engine that starts with half a turn. The sun had not yet risen above the horizon, but the workshop was already breathing. Not hollow and dull like before, when only the echo of Matt's footsteps could be heard in it, but alive, like a heart beating in a body that felt again. From inside came the clatter of metal, the splash of water, someone laughing, someone cursing under their breath, but every sound was real. In the backyard, teenagers were warming up their hands before starting work. Tommy was brewing strong black coffee, and Ruby, having wiped her palms, was about to write down the latest delivery of parts in her notebook. Matt stood by the window, looking out at the thin fog creeping across the highway, and thought about how quickly everything had changed. 3 months ago, all he had was a broken lift, old tiles on the floor, and a faded photo of his father on the wall. Now he had people. A small but real us. But as he had known since his youth, when a car ran too smoothly, something was about to go wrong. "Matt," Ruby's voice brought him out of his thoughts. "There's someone outside asking for you. Said his name was Trey Lawson. Said he was from the paper, but he wouldn't show his ID." "The newspaper, then?" Matt pressed his lips together. "Let him come in. But if he's got a tape recorder, let him put it on the table. I don't like hidden microphones." A couple of minutes later, a tall man in a light gray shirt, with a well-groomed beard and expensive shoes, walked into the office. He smiled in a way that only people who have never repaired anything with their own hands can. "Mr. Harrison, nice to meet you. I am indeed from the media, but more from a digital platform. I write for the Human Stories Project. We tell stories about places like yours." "You're not the first to come with a story," Matt said dryly. "What are you taking away?" "Just inspiration, and maybe a couple of quotes. May I?" "Sit down." They didn't talk for long. Trey asked his questions quietly, barely looking at his notepad, but Matt felt like every pause in his voice was being recorded like a word. He didn't like journalists, but this one seemed different. He listened not with his ears, but with his face. "What did you feel when you received the first box from the foundation?" "That they mixed up the address." "And now?" "That I'm still not sure that they were not mistaken." "Why?" "Because when you are given something without asking, you cannot believe for a long time that there will be no bill to follow." Trey nodded and wrote it down. "One last question," he said. "What would you like to say to those who will read about you?" Matt looked out the window. "So that they understand. Sometimes all you need is not to save someone. but just not to pass by when a person's brake is broken. 2 days later, an article came out. It was called "The Shop That Teach You Not to Fear Mistakes." There was no pathos. There were names. There were words from Ruby, Tommy, George, even a paragraph from Nate, who now washed cars with the precision of a surgeon. The city read it in an evening, and the next day there was a line outside the shop, not of customers, of people who wanted to help. "I own a parts store," said the older man in the baseball cap. "I could give away whatever I have left over, for free." "You fix things for people in need anyway, right?" "I'm a pensioner," the woman next to me added quietly. "My grandson was like your guys. I'd like to bring food, at least sometimes." "I can give lectures," said the former college professor, "on the basics of logic. They don't just need to tighten nuts and bolts." Matt listened and said nothing. Then he looked up at the sky. "Damn, Dad, you wouldn't believe it," he whispered. "But the higher the sun, the sharper the shadow falls." It happened on Friday evening, when they were about to close. One of the teenagers, Nate, didn't show up. The phone didn't answer. An hour later, someone reported that he had been seen on the other side of town. Later, the police called. "Do you have a guy named Nathan Bailey working for you?" "I was working," Matt answered cautiously. "He was arrested for attempting to sell auto parts of unknown origin. We are checking where they came from. They may be from your workshop." Matt hung up the phone without a word. He sat down, sat for a long time, not a word. When a local newspaper reporter came out with the headline, "Training Center or Cover for Hijacking," the next day, things started to go downhill. Olivia called that same night. "We support you, Matt, but the fund cannot afford scandals. We are forced to temporarily suspend funding." "Of course, I understand. I don't want you to think." "Olivia," he interrupted, "you've done more for us than anyone, and I'm not a child. I knew that sooner or later, but I'm still grateful. He didn't sleep all night. In the morning, Ruby and Tommy arrived, then George, then Alex, then 6 more." "We heard," Tommy said. "But we're not leaving. We were here before the presents. We'll be here after." "We'll fix it ourselves," Ruby said. "We became this place. It's not the money. It's us." Matt looked at them, his voice betrayingly trembling. "Then I need a welding machine. One of our racks is leaking, and someone needs to be nearby while I'm being interrogated by an officer." Then came the evening. They sat in the yard, ate pizza from a box, drank soda, listened to the old radio. No one discussed the police. No one talked about the article. They just laughed, joked around. And even Nate came. He looked down, his hands shaking as he handed Matt a plastic bag. "These are the details. All I took. I didn't think. I'm sorry." "It's not for me to forgive," Matt said. "This isn't a place for those who don't make mistakes. It's for those who want to start over. Do you still want to?" Nate nodded. "Then be here tomorrow at 7. We'll start with washing the floors." A week later, the fund was back. Alexis came to town in person. "We've had over 30 letters from people in Fair Hollow. They say that if we give up the workshop, they'll give up on us. It seems there's more going on here than we thought." "We got people," Matt replied. "And that's more important than all the grants in the world." When they drove a new sign into the ground the following Saturday, it read, "Second Gear Initiative. Not a second chance, a second start." And no one took pictures. Because no one wanted to do this show. It was not the finale. It was a continuation. Warmth came to Fair Hollow unnoticed. Not with the first grass or the sun, but with the way people began to leave their doors open and say hello at grocery stores, not out of politeness, but for real. Light returned to the city that didn't depend on streetlights. It came from within. From the small windows of a workshop with a peeling sign and a big future. The morning began with the aroma of coffee, the sound of old Bob Dylan on the radio, and the jingle of a tool. Matt stood by the hood of the red pickup, watching intently as Tommy explained to the new guy how to tighten a bolt. Near the entrance, Ruby was on her knees, writing words on a wooden board, clear and chalky. Today, free diagnostics. Tea and biscuits are in the box. If you come with an honest heart, you are always welcome. She looked up and smiled. Do you think it's too homely? Matt put the key down and walked over. Just what you need. People don't go to mechanics. They go where it's not scary. She returned to the inscription again, carefully underlining, with an honest heart. By lunchtime, the yard was full. Someone needed to pump up their tires. Someone brought his brother to show where he now works and doesn't break anything. Old Mrs. Henderson brought a pie. George, as always, sat quietly in the shade with a book, inspiring confidence by his very presence. Amid all the movement, smiles, and sounds, a black SUV pulled up. Olivia stepped out. She was wearing a light gray coat, her hair pulled back into a ponytail, and her expression was somewhere between excitement and joy. Do you have a minute? She asked, approaching. If you come back with a fund audit, I'll defend myself with a wrench. She chuckled. No, this time it's not a test. This time, it's a gift. They walked into the office, where the same chairs were still there, the smell of oil paint, and the dusty flag hanging over the door. Olivia pulled an envelope out of her bag. This isn't just paper, this is territory, 15 acres north of town. An old farm field. We want you to become an official partner of the foundation in Missouri. There will be a new center there, for training, internships, assistance. Everything you did here, only bigger. Matt was silent. The paper in his hands shook slightly. He sat down, not taking his eyes off the envelope. I don't know. I'm not a manager. I didn't build anything like that. You built this. Olivia gestured around the workshop. And you built what you can't see. People, faith, possibility. He slowly raised his eyes. What if I ruin everything? Then you'll ruin it honestly. And not the way those who were afraid to start ruined it. In the evening, a table was set in the workshop. Not formally, they simply moved 2 wooden workbenches, laid out food, someone brought a blanket. Olivia spoke. Not for long. I came to Fair Hollow by chance, but I stayed. On purpose. Because something happened here that couldn't be organized, planned, or financed. Something alive grew here, and now it must continue to grow. Matt stood up. He didn't like to talk. But this time, it all came to him. I didn't know what I was doing. Someone just knocked on my door one day. I opened it, and since that day I haven't closed it. Not because I'm kind, but because I was once the one who stood on the other side. And no one opened the door for me. Ruby was crying. Tommy was looking out the window. Nate, now an intern, sat with his back straight, as if he were taking an exam. After dinner, they stayed by the fire. The conversations weren't about business. About how, as a child, someone dreamed of becoming a pilot. About how George once forgot his keys in the trunk and drove around with a wire lock for 2 weeks. About Ruby dreaming of opening a workshop for girls. Do you really think girls are as good as guys at mechanics? Matt asked. I think, she replied, that girls can rescue too. It's just that no one gave them the tools. Then we'll give it to you, he said quietly. Olivia sat to the side, looking at the fire and thinking how strange it was. Sometimes you look for a place where you need someone, and you find someone where you are needed. Late at night, when everyone had left, Matt was alone. He walked around the empty workshop, looked into every corner, turned off the lights. He came to the new sign Ruby had put up during the day. Matt Harrison Training Grounds, for those who fix more than machines. He ran his hand over the tree. Then he went outside. The sky was clear. The stars hung low. He looked up and said, Dad, you wouldn't believe it, but it seems I fixed it after all. And that night, Fair Hollow breathed evenly. Because one man once simply did not pass by. and gave others to believe that they too could stay.